Hello and welcome to the Focal Events Dirty Reiver Diaries. Your hosts today are Brian Singleton and Neil Atkinson.
Hello Neil, how are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. Very good. To be honest, it's sunny outside, so I'm really pleased.
It's actually quite warm as well.
That's because we've got the heating on.
Oh. Yeah, good point. So, this edition of the podcast, I'm not going to give you too many clues. We're going to maybe wait a little while before we introduce our guest, but I'm very excited about that. We have, however, got a few updates on the 2025 Dirty Reiver. There's a lot been happening in Kielder. We were up there last week doing some pre-ride and checking the course. Course is looking very good. Forestry Commission, not Forestry Commission, it's Forestry England.
Forestry England now,
Forestry England.
Yeah.
Aye, that shows my age. Forestry England have been working their socks off clearing trees.
They have actually. They've done some really good stuff up there. There's been storms through and stuff around there, and they're working really hard on it.
So trees are getting cleared. They've also got their civils team out helping to smooth out some of the trails. So the course is looking fantastic this time round. We have been out riding and checking parts of it and getting the GPX files. We've also got other news on parking. What's been happening on parking, Neil?
Well, on the just parking and camping really around the castle, the 4x4 field, which the forestry organise. If people turn up, they'll get directed into some parts from the 4x4 field. There's actually some infrastructure going into there now, they're putting some road access into there now with gravel putting down and stuff. So that's going to be really, really helpful. So forestry will be able to put more people into that area, which will be ace. Tell us about camper vanning.
Camper vanning.
Is that a word, camper vanning?
Camper vanning, it is now.
Oh.
So we've got a plan for camper vanning. The idea is that we are looking to get everybody in their camper vans housed, if you like, on the Friday before the event, so that we have less people arriving in camper vans on Saturday, if possible. That just makes things run a little bit smoother. But we've also got some nice little areas that forestry again are working on to make sure that people can park their vans, have a nice view, and enjoy an event from that perspective. So looking good.
And we can let people know about the new kids on the block, can't we?
The new kids on the block, yes. So for those of you who've been following the news, we have new kids on the block in Kielder. The bike shop now is being run by Team Cycles, and those guys are super switched on.
Oh, they're on it, aren't they?
They are.
They're really nice guys.
Yeah, so we've been chatting to them quite a bit about how they can support the event. So they're going to be opening a little bit earlier and staying open a little bit later. Make sure that everybody keeps the wheels turning. And what about the coffee, Neil?
The coffee's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So if you're up there by yourselves and just training up there and like that, and you need to pop in, just pop in. The guys in there will greet you really nice, but they've got a little coffee machine in the corner.
And a bit of cake.
Oh, and a bit of cake. That cake was stunning.
Did you have a bit?
Well, yeah, a bit. I had a bit too much. But yeah, no, they're really good, and they're also going to be working with Phoenix this year, aren't they?
That's right. So Phoenix support the event with their bike cleaning products and their bike lubrication. Last year we had them doing some effectively dry cleaning of people's bikes, but this time we're going to have a little bit better setup. So up at the Team Cycles shop, which is literally adjacent to the event centre, Phoenix are going to get themselves set up and they're going to clean your bikes. But with all the dust there's going to be, because it's going to be dry, Neil.
I'm just going to blow it off.
We're just going to blow it off.
Yeah, that'd be not a problem. Also, I mean, in the Expo Village, we'll have Sean will be there. They'll be servicing people's bikes when they can do as well, and making sure that everyone's ready to go. Obviously, SRAM can't stock every single product that it needs, but Team Cycles are also going to stock up their backup store as well to be able to ensure that they can service everybody. So if you've got a problem with your bike, SRAM can't sort it out, just pop up and see Team Cycles, and I'm damn sure they'll be able to sort you out with that as well.
And also, at the event centre, we will have Unior Bike Tools. Are going to have a couple of their mechanics there. So they will be able to offer neutralised support. They're also going to be out and about on the course. And we've also got Peak, who are going to have a self-service station where you will be able to access some of their kit, pumps, etc., tools, if you want to, kind of fettle your bike, because some people are quite precious about other people getting stuck in on their bike. So
they call an activation a groovy name.
They're going to be the Peak Inflation Activation Station. Right, moving on.
Ride guide. We've just published the ride guide, haven't we?
We have.
You need to talk about that. Tell us about that.
Oh, okay. The 2025 Dirty Reiver Ride Guide is now live. It is available from the website. We've also sent some information out in the newsletters. But if you go onto the event website, go onto event, and in rider information, the ride guide is in there. It does have information about the logistics of the event, things like drop bags and what's going to be at the feed stations, etc., cut-off times, all that sort of stuff. But also in there is a lot of really good information just about general gravel riding. We have Lauf rider ambassador Maddie Nutt. We interview her. And yeah, there's just a lot of really, really good content in there, plus lots of inspiring images to make sure that you are looking forward to a great day in Kielder.
So, saying that, you just mentioned about the Lauf rider Maddie. That might really lead us really well into the intro.
Perfect. Yeah. I like how you did that.
Well, thanks ever so much. You go for it, because I'll only get confused with names.
All right. Okay. So this podcast, the main body of this podcast content is, it's a long overdue podcast. We get a chance to speak to Benny from Lauf. And Benny is the owner, founder, CEO, designer. He is the man. And we get a really good chance to chat to him and find out what it is that makes Lauf tick. So let's chat to Benny.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the latest podcast. I think this one is very, very much overdue. We're pleased to welcome Benedikt, CEO and designer at Lauf, from our gravel lunging partners in Iceland. What a gravel destination this is. And yeah, I think Lauf are well known for their innovative approach to design, and it's firmly rooted in riding experiences, and we'll allude to in a minute. So welcome to the chat, Benny.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Before we actually get into chatting about the bikes, I'd just like to sort of tell a story. And it was the first time we met Benedikt, was in Iceland, and we were very fortunate to have been invited out to the press launch for their True Grit bike, which was Lauf's first gravel bike, and that involved 3 or 4 days riding around the Highlands, or so we hoped. We started off, the first day was absolutely fantastic.
Beautiful weather. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Beautiful weather, not a breath of wind, fantastic scenery, and we did it Lauf style with fantastic stops in picturesque places, and all the food was laid on. It was magic, and I was thinking, this is going to be fantastic. There was 1 or 2 worried faces on the first night, and the following morning, the guys at Lauf sort of broke the news to us that there was a bit of a storm coming through, but we'd push on anyway. But it wasn't long before the weather really did start to pick up, and we got a true taste of what it was like in Iceland. The wind was actually that strong at one point that it carried me literally 2 feet across the track. And I have to blame the lightness of the bike that I was riding. That didn't help. But anyway, so I was the first one into the support vehicle, and as we kind of progressed through the ride, there was another person in, then another, and we sort of slowly worked our way through the group of sort of press riders and etc. that were with us. But what really, really struck me was, despite all of this, we still had a couple of riders out front, and I think it was Yuri at the time, and I think it was you, Benedikt. And it was really becoming quite a battle, as we neared our sort of overnight stay. And I think that eventually Yuri actually pulled the plug and climbed in. And I think the only person to actually finish the whole ride
was Benedikt. So
I mean, for me, it was tough. I mean, we were launching a bike called the True Grit. I mean, I couldn't really bail out, could I?
But the story didn't end there, really. The next day, we were scurrying around because a big storm had come in, and we had a few river crossings. And I seem to remember that, well, obviously that was somewhat eventful. We had the emergency services out at the other side, praying that we were going to get across these rivers. But long story short, we all got out safe, apart from the bikes. So the whole of the Lauf test fleet of True Grit bikes was abandoned on an island in the middle of the river on a couple of vehicles.
Unreleased bikes, just out there.
Out there, yeah. And so, and I think the next few days, the guys were busy looking at the weather forecast, waiting for the river to drop so they could go and retrieve them. So I don't know how much money's worth of bikes there were out there, but I'm sure there was a few furrowed brows back in Reykjavik. So it kind of leads me to the question, Benny: is that your normal way of product testing?
I mean, yeah. If your bikes can handle that, they can probably handle anything, I guess. And I often say, like, if someone claims to have ridden a bike in worse weather than this, he's lying, because it's just not possible. It was the extreme. I remember like riding down like a 10% grade or something, like in first gear, like really pushing it just to make it down that like steep slope. It's like outrageous.
It was quite special, but I think the kind of message here is that, you know, kind of all the guys at Lauf, without question, are really involved in the product design themselves and actually getting out there and riding the bikes. And I think, you know, that's something that we can take away from that, is that these bikes really are, you know, kind of they've been tested. You know, kind of looking at that. I mean, how many do you go through? Many product tests or prototypes, Benny? Is it quite a long story, or do you tend to get it fairly dialed in first time round when you're designing?
It depends a lot, like on what sort of product we're making. I mean, with some it takes like years and years and years. With others, it's simple, like geometry updates and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like in I guess like in everything we do, we for like multiple reasons, we try to like make our designs as simple as like possible. And that goes back to like riding in challenging environments, like we wrote on the True Grit launch and all that. We just want like the minimal features that can fail in our bikes. So whatever we do, we try to simplify it, not just because it makes for a better bike, but also because it makes for a bike that is easier to maintain. And as it happens to be, that also turns into a bike that is easier to develop in the end. It takes more time. Like at the first stage, you need to like scratch your head more and try to like simplify stuff. But as you get further into the process, there are fewer like things and parts that need to be tested.
Yeah. I think I remember somebody, I can't remember who it was, said that you reach perfection when there's no longer anything else to take away. Yeah.
The best part is no part, I think. So that's not, it's like from Elon Musk. I think actually you don't want to quote him these days. But that's another topic. Let's not get into that.
Yeah. Obviously, you know, most people will have certainly come across and seen the Lauf fork. Tell us a little bit about the design behind that, Benny, because that was obviously, you know, your very first product.
Yeah, I mean, that was a product we developed like knowing very little about like the bike industry or how things worked. So that was just like me, like a lifelong bike enthusiast, and had like massive interest in composites, carbon fiber, glass fiber, that stuff, which led me. So I'm an engineer by trade, so I'm a mechanical industrial engineer. But I got a job designing prosthetics, so R&D department of the biggest prosthetic company in the world, probably, which happens to be here in Iceland. So I got the job there because of my interest in composites, because that was the only company doing like interesting, like cutting edge stuff with composites. So I got the job there, but immediately, me being like a lifelong cycling enthusiast, and I started thinking about like how can we, so because like a running foot, which I was designing at work, sort of, that's basically a leaf spring made out of carbon fiber. So this immediately got me like intrigued. Okay, I mean, bikes are using carbon fiber, but only for its lightweight. Nobody is like properly using the flexural properties of these materials. So how can I do that? And then I quickly ran into like, okay, the real issue here is it's not to get the motion, sort of the suspension, but it's controlling the suspension. I mean, a foot is a different thing. You can just make like a J shape, like foot, and then flexes, and it's all good. Yeah. But if you make like an equivalent bike fork, which is basically what you see on like the old, like very old, like, I don't know, World War II era, like J-shaped, like steel forks, you get some give in those forks. But as soon as you take it like further than X, if you give it like more millimeters than a given number, they become like unrideable because they're so like soft in all directions, like laterally unstiff. It's like the real problem for me, like what kept me up at night, was how to like control the suspension, and that's when I came up with the arrangement of like the offset, like parallel leaf springs, and all the details that go into like how they are arranged, and like you have one stack of springs below the hub, another stack above, and all that, and that's how you tie it in laterally. Yeah. And then I kept on like gradually losing more and more sleep. I got more and more excited about this. So at one point I couldn't focus on like my real work, or I'm making prosthetics anymore. So I had to quit there and go like all in on this. It was I'm sometimes asked, like, I mean, do you recommend how do you recommend like starting your own business or whatever? Basically, I recommend that people shouldn't do it. It's a night. It's so much work. It's a nightmare. It's like all the problems that come up and all the things you have to address. It's endless. The list is endless. But you should only do it if there's no other way. And that's the way for me. There is no other way. I couldn't do it. It's just like I have to create this stuff. I just it's an urge like inside me to do it. So that put me on this track, and this was back in 2011, and here now, 14 years later, here we are.
Did you ever believe that from wandering around the house in the middle of the night, thinking about the strength of stuff and how it works? Did you ever believe from wandering around the house, having a cup of tea at 3 o'clock in the morning, to where you are now? Was that a pathway, or was that just was it just happened in your mind working overtime?
No, I could have never imagined like being here, like doing this, what we're doing today. It's always just a matter of like the next thing we have to do. Sort of, it's just like we have things we need to say because we think they bring something to the table, and sort of like I was just like convinced that it was something. There was something in it that we had something to say that some people would like to listen to, or then eventually write. Then I was just assuming that this would just like lead to the next thing, and then to the next thing, and somehow, and this is what has happened now, and it's so much fun now. Actually, it's never been more fun. I think to do what I do, because now it's like it's exponential, sort of. Because back then we knew nothing about like how the bike industry worked, and how, I mean, back then the plan was to manufacture everything just like in-house, because that was what I had witnessed like in the prosthetics. But prosthetics are super, like these J feet, they're super simple to, I mean, it's high-tech stuff, but it's still it's a simple shape and all that, and you can do it with machinery, so you could make it actually in Iceland. But then we realized, I mean, how a carbon frame and forks are made, and all, like the labor and skill that goes into it. You simply cannot like put that up in Iceland. You cannot train people to do that and do it like fairly economically. It's impossible. So now we've like learned how the industry works, how to work with people in the industry, and we know like so many different angles to all bike designs. We know all the geometries of all like road bikes, gravel bikes, mountain bikes. So now it's just like exponential, like the opportunities that we are like spotting now. So now we have like think me and Bergur, we're doing the R&D, like the heavy lifting sort of the fundamental R&D. Then we have suppliers working with us on like sort of like the labor intensive part of it, like doing the detail testing and detail shaping, but we do all the concept designs and all that. And we have like seriously, I think we have like a decade of stuff we want to do just like on the table now, and it's so much fun now. There's endless, and we're pretty sure that most of these things are actually like good things. But back in the days, it was more like licking a finger and hoping like someone would like it. But now we think we have a better feel for what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. So just going back quickly to the fork, you know, I believe that has got quite an incredible record in terms of its reliability. And have I heard correctly in saying that you've never had any issues with a Lauf spring fork? Full stop.
No. So we in 2011 we came up with the concept and all that. And I think in 2013-14 we came up with the first mountain bike forks. And it was a steep learning curve with the mountain bike forks. So the springs didn't last long enough on the first mountain bike forks, so they never break. They cannot break. It's impossible. But when I say they don't last, it means that they didn't maintain their original stiffness properly. So we learned a lot from the mountain bike forks, and they were like, they're actually, it's a worse application for our technology. It's not as good the application as gravel is.
Yeah,
and it's technologically like exponentially more difficult to make the mountain bike forks, because like at the travel we were doing there, it's not like linear. So the gravel fork does like 25-30 millimeters or so of travel, while the mountain bike forks were like 50 to 60 mil, and it's just like it's so much more difficult to achieve that without like fatiguing the springs. So us like battling to improve the design of the springs themselves, the layup of them, how they were cured, how they were cut and all that, trying to improve them so they would last in the mountain bike fork, eventually led to them basically lasting indefinitely in the gravel forks, basically.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I don't have any like formal statistics here, but I think I'm not wrong in saying that like we've probably sold like more than 10,000 gravel forks by now.
Wow.
I can't remember more than one like suffering from fatigue in the springs, and that was like literally I can't remember more than one, and that was like a crazy case. It was like a heavier rider bike packing a lot, riding like a shit ton on his bike, like doing loads of bike packing trips all across like continents and stuff, and yeah, that's literally the only case I can remember. And we just replaced the fork and all good.
Yeah, very good background there. Excellent. Yeah, well done.
Yeah, so I think it's. I mean, it's true to. I think it will be true to say that Lauf's definitely known as an innovator in the industry, and have really got ahead for sort of solving some of the problems that occasionally get thrown up when we try to sort of kind of push design. And you know, perhaps what I'd like to talk about is the whole comfortable is fast theme, which I think is something that, you know, you guys have been on well ahead of the curve, and you know, we look across the range, we look at the road bike, the new Uthalt, we look at the mountain bike, the Seigla, the gravel bike, all of them kind of have that nod, if you like, towards being comfortable, and we're seeing this at the highest level. I mean, you look at across any of the publications at the moment, you look at what's happening in America with the US pro riders there, you know, they're all looking at marginal gains, and quite a lot of those marginal gains are in terms of, you know, when you're riding 200 miles, 100 miles, whatever it might be, you need to be comfortable, because at the end of the day, if you're fatigued, if you're aching and sore, you're not going to be quite as good in the final as you would be if you arrived there sort of nice and fresh. So, you know, with that in mind, you know, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, like, I think like for as long as I can remember, like brands have been like promoting this, like, if you don't get beaten up as much, I mean, then you can endure longer and all that stuff. I mean, which is true. But what has been like massively overlooked until it's gradually getting more focus now is that it's not just about that. It's just you're just playing out faster when you're comfortable. Like, I mean, this is not universal. I mean, sitting upright on a like a wide saddle and like in a like an old man's position on the back, that's not faster. But like taking on fewer hits on the bike, that makes you faster, because the hits on the bike, like all the noise, like it's NVH, noise, vibration, harshness. I mean, that stuff slows you down. It's like, I often like point that like pushing a shopping cart on a rough parking lot. It's harder to push it there than what it is on a smooth store floor. It's the same thing on a bike. When you feel a lot of these like vibrations coming through your body, it's slowing you down like and like massively. So people are finally now. Dylan Johnson, you probably know him, like the gravel racer in the US. He's it's actually, I mean, we seem to share like a mindset, I think, on these things. Like oftentimes it almost sounds like he's reading from our website when he's like describing these things, but which is super cool. But like he has like noticed and like put numbers. That's a cool thing about what he has done. We haven't yet done a job good enough ourselves, actually, like putting like actual numbers on these things. But he has done that, which is pretty cool. And he's found out like how many watts you're saving by riding on wider tires versus narrow tires on rough gravel and all that. And this is it's huge savings, actually. It's not like a small amount. It's not just to make you feel better at the end of the ride, but you become just like so much faster. And this probably applies very much to your event, because like it's on the like rougher side of things. And this is like but like the tricky thing always with like innovation in bikes and innovation, I guess, like in general, is that when you come out with something like new, people say like, hey, if this was true, people would have done this like years and years ago. But here's like the tricky thing is that it doesn't. The thing is that yes, it is faster if you do it right, if you have like the right kind of wide tires and all that. But it's certainly not gonna feel faster.
Yeah.
So that's always like the big issue here. And since we're like, let's say you're riding 200 miles or 200 kilometers or whatever, like a super big distance, nobody can claim to like feel being like some minutes faster or like 20 minutes. I mean, it's virtually the same speed, sort of. But it's still a difference that can make you win the race. So basically, how do you feel speed? It's through like noise, vibration, harshness. I mean, when you get more of that stuff, you feel faster. So until now, like when you have power meters and wind tunnels and all this shit, you can finally put numbers on those things.
Yeah.
And like the crazy thing is that it's so funny. Like road cyclists have always been like these like conservative bunch of riders that never want to try anything unless it's like exactly the same thing as the old thing. Maybe like 2% stiffer, 3% blacker, or whatever. But like it's them actually leading the trend now of adopting like wider tires.
Yeah.
Because like the first basically proper science that was like proving these things was like wind tunnel testing. And wind tunnel testing, and then that basically suggested what narrow tires. But then you could like easily with power meters. Wind tunnel testing took you to narrow tires in general. But then now with the adaptation of power meters across the board, basically on high-end bikes, on road bikes, you could like easily conduct tests that show a 32 millimeter tires is faster than a 28. Yeah. Because like you can control the environment like variables pretty well on road bike. So road bikes now are shifting more and more to 32. I think like in all the like data I've seen seems to be that at the moment for the current wheel tech and frame tech and all, 32 seems to be the optimum. So despite feeling much slower, people are now adopting 32. But on gravel and mountain bikes, it's a mess when you try to like measure something. How in the world do you measure? You know how this is. I mean, like variability of just like the line you pick and the wind and just like how much does like your like ability to corner harder, for example, on rough terrain, all these variables, how do you measure? So this is why it's breaking down much slower in mountain bikes and gravel bikes. So it's happening in gravel bikes now, But I think like now, I mean, that was super fun to do that with the Seigla, to break down that sort of mentality of, I mean, you know, it's like, I mean, you probably have this at your event a lot, that people approach you and like, how wide of a tire do I need for the course?
Yeah,
it's a question
all
of
the time.
Yeah, which is like, it's so the wrong way to approach a problem, sort of. Well, you should be asking like, what is the fastest tire width, sort of, rather than how wide does it need to be. In that question lies the assumption that narrower is faster, but it isn't. So yeah.
Yeah, it's all really interesting. And I think, you know, what you said there about, you know, kind of the power meters side of things is giving those insights, which we never had many years ago. Although, you know, I do know that, you know, you take Paris-Roubaix, for example, there's always been a recognized move towards, you know, kind of bigger, wider tires. And again, I guess that is the, you know, that kind of is a nod towards what we're talking about here. But yeah, I think as again
a little, because like people feel slower and they think they know that wide is slow, so it's always like, how wide does it have to be, sort of.
Yeah,
that's always like the pull back. The data tells you one thing, and then you pull back towards what you think is the truth of narrower actually being faster, sort of. It's
And I think what you're saying there about that we actually feel speed or have a perception of speed through vibration and noise, and we feel if that's at a high level that we must be going fast. Whereas in actual fact, it's the exact opposite. I heard a really good analogy, and I think it might have been on GCN. If we can just quote them, and one of the guys said there, it's like, if you drive a really old-fashioned car with those old wooden tires and no air in them at 100 miles an hour, you'll feel really rickety and whatever, and you'll feel, oh my gosh, this feels like incredibly fast. Whereas if you get in your Mercedes coupe and drive at 100 miles an hour, you'll just go along with one hand on the steering wheel, and you will not feel any speed, even though you're going the same. And I think that was quite a good way of trying to summarize.
That's 100% it. Absolutely. And which brings me to like our fork. So like, I think like the party trick of like the fork on Seigla, the Lauf suspension fork, is that when you are like going like slightly downhill, and it reaches like a certain speed of like, let's say like 20 miles per hour or something on slightly rough gravel, and then all of a sudden you hit this like speed band where when like stuff just like vanishes. It's just like, and that's like the aha moment. So if we do like a loop, like a test loop for our bikes at this year's race or event, we need to like include like a segment where you can like easily like pedal or coast or whatever above 20 miles per hour. That's like the aha moment, and that people are just like, wow, shit. It's just like stuff like obstacles just like vanish under the front tire.
That is really interesting. So yeah, let's you know, we talked sort of quite broadly. Let's just look at the Seigla specifically then. I mean, this is your second generation gravel bike, if that will be right. The True Grit obviously being a fantastic bike, but I think we can see there's quite a difference between that and the new bike. You know, what were the major focuses then for you? Sort of, you know, obviously you came from the True Grit, you obviously learned quite a lot from that, or certainly things moved on. You know, we look at the Seigla, we look at the kind of differences, you know, and you know, I think it's already proved itself at the highest level. We've had Ashton Lamy unbanked riding Lauf to huge success. So what were the major things that you were focusing on when you came to redesign or move on to the Seigla?
Basically, Seigla was all about like going just like pretty much like all in for the stuff that we wanted to do. Well, on the True Grit, we were like held back a little bit because it had to be, it's this tricky thing with like innovative like products. You cannot overdo it. It just put people up. It's just like too much to digest at a time. So with the True Grit, it was all about the fork still. But then having sold like thousands and thousands of those bikes, mainly in the US, where like it's our by far biggest market. Then we had sort of like proven the fork, and then we could do like more stuff in the bike frame itself. and then we could go all in on like our beliefs, for example, on like the using like the one by only design to achieve more tire clearance, for example, use of the space that is otherwise taken up by the inner chainring, like and push the chainstays out into that space and put up enable you to fit a wider tire. So it's stuff like that, and then also on the Seigla we like include compliance in the back end of the bike to look to better like fit the front end, like plushness sort of.
Yeah.
So it's mostly those. It's just a lot of things that like go into making like or achieving those two things to get like the massive tire clearance and the compliance in the back. But at the end of the day, it's just those two things, achieving those two things. And with the back on the topic of the tire clearance, it's like we wanted to go all in on our beliefs there. Plus, we were able to because like the market came such a long way. So since we launched the True Grit back in 2017-18, but in 22 when we lost the Seigla, then like gravel racing had like really caught on, and people were starting to realize that like tires could benefit from going like even above like the huge volume of a 45 mil tire back then. 45 was the tire clearance on the True Grit, and people like consider that to be huge. Like 40 was the norm back then, but we went like really far by fitting 45s. So on the Seigla we could like take it all the way sort of to like 2.25.
Yeah.
So I say all the way because I think I doubt you will benefit from going much wider than that on a gravel bike, because then really I say that now. I believe in that here now at least that you won't benefit from going much wider than that at all. I think like when it's still a bike that is ridden at like the average speeds you see in a gravel race, because like the higher and higher the speed gets, the bigger and bigger impact wind resistance has. So there's an optimum point here. You can't just go like wider and wider and wider.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. So basically, as a rider, then, what are they going to notice when they get on the Seigla? What is the rider experience going to be like?
Yeah, it depends on where you're coming from, I guess. From what bike? Like I said, like the aha moment is always when you reach those like 20 miles per hour, give or take speeds, and then stuff like vanishes like on the front tire. And it's not just like it's not magic. It's actually there's a reason behind that. It's because then like the simple and sort of like clean nature of the suspension and the fork. Then like because there's no damping in the fork. It's absolutely like instant.
Yeah.
And which at slow speeds or low speeds, it like takes the edge off on hit. So if you're like, let's say you roll slowly into a curb, then like it's gonna take the edge of the jolt sort of from the curb. But of course, like you'll be lifted up onto the like sidewalk or whatever you're rolling like onto. So your front wheel and your handlebar and everything is gonna move up. But if you're riding at like 20 miles per hour or so, and you have some rocks and stuff on the road that you hit, then the speed is high enough for the wheel to like go up and then down again before you racing the handlebar by any significant amount. So like it has to do with like the natural frequency of stuff. So the rebound happens like after you've passed the rock that you hit.
Yeah.
So this is like the magic. This is actually we had so back in the days we used to have dealers in the US, and there was this one dealer that always like massively outsold everyone else. They sold like 10 like the next 10 dealers or so, and they were taking people like on a pickup truck up like a local hill and telling people just like right down this hill, then we'll talk when you get down. And people just like kept buying the bikes like because of this experience.
And I did an event last year, a couple of years ago in Spain, and I can remember coming down one section, and it did hit that that magic sort of that glass type magic feel, and other people were just bouncing off stuff. I'm from a mountain bike Brian and I are from a mountain bike background anyway, so I just thought it was a little bit of skill. But then when you explain it like that as well, that and your body and your technical skill comes together, and you just leave people standing in a way. It's stunning, it really is.
Yeah,
I can't put that down to my skill then. That's fine.
Yeah, no, and like this like it's all. I mean, we try to do the best we can, like designing stuff, but in the end, it's like so much like unexpected comes up. You can't predict everything, and like literally in the beginning, like designing the Lauf forks, we were planning on having like damping in the design because like, hey, everybody had damping, and that's why I thought like, of course you have to have damping. Then like we started riding them like in the first like prototypes without the damping and realized like these benefits, how the tire just like gets glued to the ground because it can like absolutely track it in this type of riding. And it was like eye-opening for us. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
So the website mentions Benny that you use a special carbon layup in the design. Is that something that was chosen for a reason, and what are the benefits of layup?
So okay, the springs are glass fiber that we use, but like all the structures we make, aside handlebars, we use glass fiber as well for the center portion to get compliance. But for the rest, we actually it sounds like unglamorous, but we use like the most common like standard modulus carbon fiber. So we don't use any high. You often see in like ads that like when brands are trying to like hype up like given bike that they tell us about the high modulus carbon fiber that they use in it, which can, I mean, theoretically it can make sense to use high modulus carbon fiber, but very rarely so, and usually it comes at a cost. And not just like in like dollars or pounds, but the cost of your bike becoming like insanely brittle. Mm-hmm. So it becomes like crazy fragile. And we're not like when people say that high modulus fiber is more brittle or fragile than standard modulus, like the logical assumption is to think, it's slightly more fragile. No, it's like 10 or 100 times more fragile. It's like it's a different order of magnitude kind of fragile. So what brands leave out of the like message to you when they say high modulus, they don't really explain what that means. So what that means, high modulus means, yes, it's stiff. So modulus is just like for stiffness of a material, but it's actually much weaker than the standard modulus fiber. So it's like it has, I can't remember from the top of my head, but it like 30% or something less strength than the standard carbon fiber, but it's just stiffer. So and like the poison in this combination is that it doesn't become just 30% weaker, because then brands build their bike components to achieve a certain level of stiffness, not strength. Yeah. So if you have something that is twice as stiff, which high modulus is, it's give or take twice as stiff. Actually, it can be 4 times stiffer. Yeah, so it can be so much stiffer than the standard modulus stuff. So when you do that, you end up using so much less material than what you would do with standard modulus. So like the wall thickness becomes maybe half or maybe thirds of what you would do with standard modulus. Of a material that is to begin with 30% weaker, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. So it's insanely fragile. So like a rock in the down tube, and it just cracks if you have it there. So, but I mean, this is not to say that nobody. I mean, it's not a pointless material like high modulus, but it doesn't have many applications. And as soon as I see someone like using it in a fork, for example, that's just plain out dangerous, I think, because a fork needs to be able to like absorb energy when you like, for example, brake with your front brake. I use the left hand here. I should have used my right hand. So when you brake with the front brake, then your fork like flexes underneath you a little bit, of course. So it needs to be able to absorb this energy. And when you hit something big, it needs to be able to absorb energy. But high modulus fiber doesn't really do that. It would snap under these conditions.
And,
so that's basically,
I guess, everything we've talked about, we want something that's comfortable and compliant. And if you go to the other end of the scale to save a few grams and you're getting something that's super stiff, then we're back to square one, whereby 70 miles into a 100-mile course, you're feeling the effects of that. And it makes total sense to me that if you're riding gravel and rocks and things are flicking up and hitting the frame, you want to know something that you riding is going to be reliable and isn't going to be adversely affected by those bashes and dings.
Yeah, exactly, because like the slowest bike is a broken bike, I guess. So so it's like a balance there. But it doesn't mean that we should just keep on loading material on your bike until it's unbreakable. But it's there's a balance there. And we try to, I mean, it's a light bike, Seigla. I mean, what's the 1,200 grams, the frame or so, give or take 11, I can't remember. It's among the lighter gravel frames for sure. But the way you can achieve that without sacrificing, it's like, when can you achieve something without sacrificing that is worth more, sort of? And the way you can do that is to do like honest shapes, for example. So not to do weird kinks in random places. I mean, kinks in shapes, they add weight. Because I mean, you've never seen, I mean, like in Rome and Greece, they didn't build like columns that did like that bent left and right. I mean, they were straight because that's just like how it's. Sorry.
Just like the roads, they were straight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like through we want to do like honest shaping sort of, and then try to avoid like excess material where you have like double overlap and you have like dead weight sort of and all this stuff. So through like these things we can achieve like very I mean it sounds like we have a heavy frame, but we don't. It's one of the lightest frames out there, but it's crazy light. It's not close to like the closest, like the lightest crazy light Tour de France road frames at all.
Yeah. I mean, the bike certainly doesn't feel heavy. I mean, they are super, super light. So
and that goes back to like the simplicity we talked about earlier. Simplicity, not adding stuff. So there are no fender mounts on our bikes. If you want fender mounts, look elsewhere, or like change your opinion on if you like fender mounts or not. That's so it's like I always like. I have to admit, I'm sort of like glad when I see other brands come out with gravel bikes that try to do everything. That like put mounts on the forks and like frame everywhere all over and fender mounts and rack mounts and all these things because and at the same time they make it aero and blah 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 because then like you're diluting the whole thing. So that's basically how we achieve the lightweight of the Seigla bike, just by skipping stuff that we don't feel is like appropriate on a bike of this type. I mean, you don't put a trailer hitch on an Aston Martin, do you? So it's like
I'm still waiting to go in Brian's open top Mercedes. I'm waiting for that one, Brian.
So Benny, moving on, you've obviously got other bikes in the range as well. You've just launched a new mountain bike, the Elia, which has already won a design and innovation award. So you must be very, very proud of that because I believe the bike isn't actually, or is probably only close to coming onto the market. You must be very happy with that.
Yeah, super happy. Yeah, so we're starting to ship it now in a week or two from now. The first bikes are shipping out, and some sizes, and then other sizes like 4 weeks later. Yeah, it's gradually ramping up now. Yeah, we couldn't be happier with that award because it's the thing is, to us, it's much more than just an award for a bike. It's like it's an award for a philosophy behind the bike, sort of. Because we're doing like talking about tire widths now. I mean, on the Elia, we're taking mountain bikes on. I mean, it took mountain bikers like a decade to move from 26-inch wheels to 29. because the 26 they felt faster, they were snappier, they accelerated faster. But then it took us like a decade or so to realize that hey, actually the 29er is the faster option here. And now we're like doing the next step. We're not doing a 32-inch. We're not doing that, but we are doing like proper mountain bike tire widths. So it's a cross country / trail bike that can actually fit up to 3-inch tires.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm not convinced 3 inches is the fastest on a cross country bike, but I am pretty convinced that a 2.6 is way faster than a 2.4. So we spec it on 2.6. So we have a collaboration with Goodyear. So they made like a new tire design for us. The Peak tires, they made them in 2.6 for us, and it's amazing. And sort of like the award for the Alia means that they're getting on board with his philosophy, and as well they're getting on board with the philosophy of like the rear suspension mechanism. So we're doing two things on this bike, like crazy like tire clearance. Yeah, not crazy. All the bikes are crazy, we think. So this is the logical one. And then we are doing like a insanely simple rear suspension mechanism. And actually I'm working on a video explaining like why and how and all that. But it's actually people have seems like most cyclists have like a mind block of some sort, thinking that more complicated rear suspension mechanisms are better because they are complicated and therefore they must be complicated for a reason. But this is actually, I mean, I'll go into that in detail in that video I'm making. But it's funny, like you have all these like suspension systems out there that have like multiple linkages and pivots and stuff, but the end result, like what they're actually doing, is pretty much just like what we are doing in our bike with just the pivot like firmly placed in one location, and that's it.
Well, that sounds exciting. You've also, fairly recently launched a road bike, the Uthal, which looks absolutely fantastic. And that's again had some amazing write-ups across the board. Tell us a little bit about that one as well, then, Benedikt.
Yeah, so that was one of we talked about earlier here, like how long it takes to develop a product. That was one of the quicker ones actually, because like doing the Seigla, we sort of had developed this bike in a way, like, so this is almost like a byproduct of the Seigla, because the Seigla and the True Grit, because making the Seigla and the True Grit led us to, or showed us how like a more stable geometry, like a stable head angle than what used to be the normal gravel bikes when we came out to the True Grit. So we have a more stable head angle on the True Grit than like the old norm. I think the new norm is sort of close to the Seigla. But like doing this head angle made us like realize, okay, shit, we need to make a road bike at some point that does the same for road cyclists, makes them faster through stability. They're going to feel slower. Back to that same thing with the tires. They're going to feel slower because it's so stable, but they're going to ride faster because they're confident through the turns. Yeah. And they don't need to like constantly correct their course. They can just like focus on pedaling. So it was that. And then there was the rear compliance that we achieved in Seigla, like achieving that and measuring it actually against competitors, like doing like in a measurement bench sort of. We realized like, wow, okay, this needs to be done on a road bike as well, because like the effect is going to be so much amplified because you don't have the huge tire to rely on. Yeah. So so through Seigla we had developed Uthal, so then we made Uthal.
Your road bike it's and all your bikes look so interesting, and I need to know more of them. What I'd like to know more of. So Seigla itself stands for, if I'm right, resilience.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So it was our attempt sort of just like translating True Grit to Icelandic. Yeah.
And so what does the mountain biking and the road do they translate into English, or are they? Yeah.
So it's probably in a dictionary they would all translate into pretty much the same, but it's like different flavors of the same sort of. So Elia, that means it's True Grit again, basically, okay. But it's like it has to do with like you could almost connect it to like work ethics almost. It's like if you have Elia, then you're slightly diligent as well. You use your true grit and towards like a higher goal or something, like bringing food to the table or whatever, something like that. Well, true grit could be like, it could be something like on a stupid mission to get to the top of a mountain or something. But like Elia wouldn't describe that.
Yeah. That's good.
And Well, úthald it could be translated to the same, but it could also be translated over to stamina. So it's stamina/true grit.
Yeah, like that.
There's
like
definitely a theme there. So
yeah, there isn't there. Yeah.
I want to talk just to just sort of draw things together briefly about kind of where people can buy Seigla, and see Lauf. I mean, obviously through the website, but Lauf is direct to customer. I mean, you ship from the US now. And that was a fairly recent move because obviously you used to ship from Taiwan. What were the benefits to you from moving? What was the reason behind moving from Taiwan to the US? I mean, we noticed that there was a substantial drop in your or the bike costs. But from your perspective, how did that move come about?
So it was all about like optimizing, and simplifying sort of our just like logistics, because like. It's at the end of the day, I mean, people can make it complicated and do lots of spreadsheets about it. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a matter of not assembling bikes over in Taiwan that you're unsure that you will be able to sell like 2 months later or 3 months later when the ship arrives. So not taking that risk with your inventory means you can keep everything unassembled in your shelves. And then you can like just assemble exactly what is ordered, and this means you like half your inventory or whatever, or like the flip side of that means you can be much more responsive to like unforeseen like demand sort of. So we can basically what we do now is that we can like split our inventory up into different like parts sort of. We have like the slow moving things where we have total control and we can like bring that in by boat, and those happen to be like the big volume, as in like the bulky stuff, like the frames and forks and handlebars and wheels actually as well. These things we can always bring in by boat, which makes it like environmentally good and all that, and cost efficient, because we know they have like a long like shelf life sort of. Yeah. But then with like items that quickly like can go sour, like drivetrains, because like a new model that adds like the 13th or 14th speed or whatever comes out, you don't want to bring those in like ahead of the season, like being unsure of what the demand will be and all that. So we bring that in like quickly and in small cases by flight. So all this just adds up to like efficiency, and which means we can sell at a better price, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean, and Neil and I, we've just been fortunate enough to get a couple of bikes from you guys using the direct to customer. And I have to say, from experience, it is absolutely seamless. And for anybody out there listening, it actually took 6 working days from the point of ordering to the bike arriving. Everything was totally seamless in terms of tracking, in terms of clearing customs. I think it was in customs for, I don't know, a couple of hours and away it went. And I was actually out on the bike from it arriving. It took me about 15 to 20 minutes. Super quick assembly. And we're out and about on the bikes. And I was actually quite blown away by the attention to detail. Things like, even the through axles and the bottle cage bolts were all pre-greased and things like that. So, you kind of the attention to detail in the build of the bikes is fantastic. I mean, you must be pretty proud of what you've achieved in that respect.
I mean, the team in the US, so they're absolutely amazing. So, I moved back to Iceland now last summer after spending 2 years there with my family. While we're like trying to get this thing running, the factory there. And I was just like, they run their own show pretty much there in the US now, and they do an incredible job. Just like the attention to detail in assembly they have, and just like the pride they take in the work. It's it's amazing. It's
You can definitely see that come through the pride of their work, definitely, because it takes me longer to put my bike together when I go on holiday, when I pack it myself on a plane, than it did when this bike arrived. And it was just like, literally, it was 15, 20 minutes and I was on it. I was outside on it. And I was gobsmacked by that. I really was.
No, yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, it truly is.
Yeah, and even the brakes were the right way around.
They were, yeah.
Which was absolutely amazing. We were on right hand as opposed to left. All this just makes it such a super competitive and compelling bike to be looking at. I mean, you can get a SRAM axis equipped bike with a power meter. It's a carbon build, carbon wheels, a grip fork, and I think it came out at around about £4,500, which, for a bike that's such incredible value and it's packed full of innovation. It is absolutely fantastic. So Lauf are going to be at a couple of UK events this year, and we're obviously looking forward to hosting you guys at Dirty Reiver. We are actually planning to run a Lauf loop, and that will give an opportunity for people coming to the event to get onto one of the Seiglas and have a ride round. And what we might try and do, Benedikt, is take a few of your top tips there and try and plan something where people can cruise along nicely at that 20 miles an hour. I think that's going to be a great way of just encouraging more people to actually, to get onto the bikes, because at the end of the day, once you've ridden one, you will really see what the benefits are. So we've obviously got the Lauf website, which is, people can sort of find extra information on there. So one final question: what's going to be the next chapter, do you think, in the world of Lauf?
We're pretty preoccupied by the Elia now and everything like that platform has to offer, sort of, and what to do within mountain biking with that. But yeah, there's a long list of stuff we want to do in gravel and road as well. So yeah,
your mind doesn't stop working, does it? And you can see there where he's smiling deep down. Yeah. It's just like you're developing something, but you can't say it at the moment.
No, it's a problem. Yeah, it's relentless.
You just need to find that button where you can turn it on and off.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Ben, it's been a real pleasure. As I say, it was long overdue, this chat. We've had a long association with you guys, and it has been absolutely fantastic just to sort of see your journey. We're total fans.
Congrats to you guys on the event. It's amazing what it has grown to. It's amazing. I hope I can witness it firsthand this year. I hope so. Yeah,
and I think people would love to see you there. I'm sure you'll get asked plenty of questions, and there's definitely a lot of interest about the bike. So yeah, so thank you very much for your time, and we'll hope to see you in Kiel there.
Thank you so much.
So Neil, that was Benedikt from Lauf. What an insightful conversation that was.
Oh, do you know what? He doesn't sleep at night. He was saying he has a problem with it wandering around at night at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. But the way his mind works, and it puts that information and there's no barriers to him. It just keeps going and develops something with it. And, he used to work with the prosthetics and the blade, to turn that into suspension, to turn all that idea into bike. And now it's a mountain bike, a road bike and a gravel bike. I just think he's such an intriguing, intelligent, nice bloke. I really do. I was blown away by him, really.
Yeah, and just to hear the story, the fact that, obviously where Lauf came from, and he obviously, was working in an industry, and not only just, thinking about developing what his day job was, he was thinking beyond that and what adaptations and how that could be built into gravel. So absolutely fantastic. What I really took away from it was how much his thinking seems to be just that little bit ahead of everybody else. For the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen that Lauf bikes have always had that ability to accept bigger tires, for example, 45s, 50s, etc.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing that in the industry. There's that development and that push as people recognize that those bigger tires are now a direction that people are going in, because of that fact that if you are being comfortable, then that leads to you being less fatigued and less faster. But also we're getting hard concrete evidence, through power meters and different ways of measuring, call all these kind of metrics, different ways of measuring the fact that lower pressure, that higher volume tire is really leading to, an increase in performance. And we're seeing that across the board in all disciplines.
Yeah, I just think, I'd love to spend more time with him and just really delve into who he is and how his family life situation all comes around at home, because his brain just doesn't stop, does it? It's just a remarkable character. It really is.
And I wonder what's going to happen next. Let's watch this space.
Well, there's something going to happen, because he went quiet, didn't he?
He did.
So really good. Really enjoyed chatting to him. So is that all for us on this one, is it, Brian?
It is.
Happy gravelling.